Give me 1 sec. I'm still getting feedback from someone's mic, so I'm gonna mute everyone. Okay, cool. All right. So week 3 office hours. Quick introductions again for those of you who are joining us for the first time. You're going to hear from a lot from me today, so let me apologize in advance. I'm Jace Moreno, and I look after Teams platform globally for our Microsoft customer success organization. We have an amazing team behind the scenes, per usual, of Emma, Michael, Tim, and Alexi. Well, I want to give a big shout out to everybody because the 3 folks on the left here have been critical to planning everything that you're going to experience, and you're going to hear from them in the coming office hours. Alexi, I want to give you a huge shout out. If you're not on the call, then hopefully you'll see this later. But Lexi did a killer job the last 2 office hours, not only going through how to prepare your environment and putting together that information, but also deploying the application. And he's been huge help in the actual community, getting questions and answers, as have the rest of the team. But Alexi's really gone above and beyond on the technical side of things. So massive thank you to you, Alexi. A quick update on where we are today on our progress. So again, this is a 6-week running office hour. We have covered the first 2, which is preparing your environment and the deployment of the company communicator application. Today, we're going to go through preparing your first message and leveraging the templates that we've created. So you're going to get to see the templates we've put together for the first time. And really 3 through 5, I think, are the critical office hours moving forward now, where we're going to cover best practices. We're going to invite some of you to come on and join and talk about what you're doing, what's worked, what you're seeing and experiencing. And our goal is to make particularly 4 and 5 and 6 much more collaborative as we go through, because we'll cover most of the basics by then. And a final reminder that our goal is not to leave anybody behind. So we recognize, again, that some of you have already deployed, some of you aren't there yet, and everything in between. And that's fine. We wanted to give you these recordings so you can run at your own pace, either before or after the event, or sorry, during or after the event. All right, so getting in today, what we're going to talk about is, again, moving forward and sharing a bit of what we've learned has worked for customers around the globe with respect to this solution and the communication strategies that work and don't, frankly. And this will hopefully be relevant for all of you beyond Company Communicator. That's something we talked about quite a bit as a team as we put this together, is that this wasn't just about this application. This was about a communication strategy. And you'll see when we have the templates that those will be much more value, those will add value beyond just the application itself. So again, we'll share what we've learned, we'll share best practices, and we've seen how other organizations use this around the globe. We're going to open this up, hopefully have a bunch of great discussions to hear from all of you. And then again, starting next week, hopefully we'll have some organizations that actually come on and co-present with us and share. Last thing I'll say though is, look, we've learned a lot and we've seen what has worked for other organizations, but we all have nuances to how our organizations work, to our culture, to what we want to achieve, to our strategic objectives. I'm going to go ahead and mute. If I can ask if you can stay off mute, that'd be really helpful. Thank you. Just because we're recording this, or stay on mute. But most importantly, going back to the slides, is we're here to learn as well, right? We're here to listen. And we want to work with you together as a community to deliver something incredible, because while we know what's worked for others, the reality is many of you here, we have a lot of communication experts in this community. Okay? Now it's organization-wide communications for a good, if not the entire part of your careers. And so we hope that you'll share your feedback and progress as we go through this, anywhere where you're slowing down, so we can help out. But again, we're also really excited to share because we have seen some incredible best practices. And so today, what are we going to cover very specifically? I'm actually going to do a real live demo for you where we stop and pause and go through some of the intricate details, tips, best practices of using the application itself, the author application. And then we're going to show you the templates that we've built. So we built some pre-populated templates for Microsoft Teams. And then we've got some templates, And then we've got some templates that are available for you to fill out on your own. So we wanted to make sure that this wasn't just about Teams either. You might have other things that you want to consider. Yesterday, Department of New South Wales in Australia was talking about sending their first message for, they've had some issues with data protection. And so they wanted to send their first message to their users to cover that. So again, sky's the limit on the content. We're going to really jump into that next week in terms of types of content and things that you might want to consider. But we wanted to set the last foundational base today. So with that, I'm going to do a quick pause, check with the team, see if we've got anything we need to cover. And if not, I'll pop into the demo. How are we looking, guys?
Looking good this end, Jace. Tim, anything? Mike, anything you want to call out from the chat?
No, we're good.
I think we're hammering through it.
Sweet, thanks, guys. I don't have my phone on me at the moment, so I'm looking at the chat. All right, so this is a demo environment, but again, we're going to pause and walk through using the application here. So just to level set, when you deploy the Company Communicator application, you have the user application, which you'll see in a bit, but that's where users will receive the adaptive card message that will go here in a moment. And then you have the author application, and that's what you're looking at right now. So I'll expand this here in a moment. But the author application often sits in it, or it always sits in a team of your choice. So in this case, we just have this sitting in the general HR support team, which is the team that I'm in. And this is sitting as a tab up here called the Company Communicator application. You can name it whatever you like. And so I'm going to expand this here for a moment. And when you first jump into the author application, and again, only users that you've given access to will have access to the author application, right? So not everybody can jump into the author application. You can see two types of messages here. You can see draft messages and you can see sent messages. So draft messages, of course, are messages that you have not sent yet. Sent messages, of course, are messages that have already gone out to the specified group and users that you've determined. And we'll walk through that here in a moment, as well as how to report. So to start a new message, you need to hit that new message button up at the top right of the screen. And this is what everybody will see by default, okay? So pretty simple form that you need to fill out. So here's a task module. And I'm going to walk through and then pause again through each one of these, some of the best practices and tips that we've seen and encourage the team to share as we go. And so first thing you're going to want to do is obviously fill in a title. And we're going to talk through some specifics here in a moment on what you might want to consider filling in a title. Of course, if you guys have surely noticed, a huge fan of the emojis. So once you pop that in, what I would say, just to go back to the slides here, some considerations for the title itself is capture, obviously, and again, forgive me if this is remedial for some of you who are experts, but I think it's really important to go over some of these basics here, because I know myself as somebody who sends out a lot of communications to huge communities, it's easy to forget sometimes that why is this relevant to the user and what do they need to see in order to actually have them understand and leverage this content. You've all probably seen me do that in our community, frankly, at some point. And so I think it's really great to rehash some of these tips. But of course, the title itself is going to capture your user attention and determine whether or not they read anything more in the message. It's the same thing as sending out an email or any other message where you want to capture attention of the user. So incredibly important to have a tagline that really draws people in. I would recommend, Ernst & Young talks about this quite a bit, and I bring them up so often because they're the largest user of Company Communicator on the planet. They've had it for over 10 months. They've got a lot of best practices and insights that frankly help build the foundation of this program. And they always talk about user scenarios, the why. Why do I care? What is this going to help me do? And to be fair, their messages are usually in the context of Microsoft Teams tips, but I think it's really important to call out. Other thing I'd say is be descriptive yet concise. I mean, the message looks a little bit funky if you put in too many characters, and I can show you what that looks like here in a moment, but I think concise is the name of the game here. And then this is cultural, but have fun with it if that makes sense for your culture and your organization in the context of the message, right? So I've got push the button on the screen, which is kind of the fun phrase that Tim came up with that we're going to talk about as we're saying, push the button and send your first message. So you hear that theme from us as we go throughout the sessions. Let me pause here, though. I want to give the team an opportunity if there's anything else they want to share around the title, best practices, thoughts, if questions have come up.
Quick one here, Jace. Brett's asked, so authors need to be part of both the team and also need specific permissions to be a Company Communicator author.
Yeah, so by giving them the permissions, I'd imagine, I need to double check this, but I'd imagine it adds them to the, actually, nope, I take that back. It's 2 steps. So yes, team and an author. I'm just realizing now because we've got a demo environment internally. So correct.
Yeah. So what you'll oftentimes do is you'll have a team that is created for your authors or your content creators, where they have the Company Communicator author console that Jace is showing on the screen right here. And that place can also be a working space where you can plan your messaging campaigns. You can draft the different fields that you're going to fill in so that can be reviewed, so you don't accidentally have somebody put in a typo. And so it's a great staging area for your content creators, in addition to the fact that, as you can see right up there at the top where it says General Post Files, Wiki, Company Communicator, you click that and that brings you into the authoring interface. There is also guidance that we have in the FAQ document about how you push out the Company Communicator client to each of your people who are going to receive your messages. That can be done in an automated fashion or in a more manual fashion, and we can discuss both.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a bit too. Great
Hey,
ad.
Jace, I love the emojis as well. That's kind of one of those off menu items. You kind of know the secret on how to do that. You want to let people know.
Yeah. So if you've got, unfortunately, this isn't available if you're a Mac user, so forgive us. But if you hit Windows and the semicolon, that opens up the hidden emoji menu, and you can use that across all of Windows and Teams. But that's how I pop that up right there. So you can surely see, those of you who have been paying attention to my messages, the common ones that I'm using here. Unfortunately, that one showed up, a little nauseated face. But yeah, I use these quite often. Look, I will say this. One thing to consider as well is accessibility on this. And I got a hand slap on the templates that we're going to share with you in a bit because we had a bunch of emojis on them. So we like to have fun with these, but I recognize that this might not always meet certain organizational standards and requirements for accessibility. So just a big consideration point there. So we're just trying to have some fun with all of you here, but just calling that one out. Well, thanks for calling that out too, Byron.
Yeah, and on the same lines, if you hit the Windows in the period or the Windows in the semicolon, the people icon actually shows 5 different skin tones. So there is some diversity available within the people icon. One over on the bottom row.
Yeah, my bad, thanks.
Notice the skin tones at the top, so you can change from a diversity perspective. So it
great shout.
Not bad. Yep.
Yeah, love it. Okay, so going on to the next phase here is adding your image. So this has to be, by default, it has to be publicly available, and we'll go into the details of size requirements, etc. here. We are also giving you some images, and then in the FAQ, we also have a workaround if you want to use internal secure images. One thing to call out, if anybody is open to customization, a quick one, we actually have the code available where you can add this into your experience where it would have an upload image option. So imagine a button right here that allows you to upload an image, and it's pretty easy to add that code into your experience. One thing I want to call out is that has not gone through the proper security testing that the Company Communicator application has gone through. Now, I'm not concerned because the gentleman on our team who built it is pretty incredible. His name's Cristiano. But I just want to call that out because I know a lot of you have questions around support and capabilities, etc. And again, I'm happy to point anybody to that in the FAQ. So I created a short link here in order to get this set up. And so as you can see, that image pops up. So what I did is I just went online, searched on my search engine of choice, found an image, I copied that image, and I added a short URL, which is something we'll get to when we get to the button URL down in a moment. But that way I can just pull up the image pretty quickly and easily for all of you. And I'd say what's really important is the context of the image. We're talking about pushing the button. There's the image right there. So again, you can pull this from Google, you can pull it from Bing, you can go online, you can find these images if you want, you're comfortable with that, and then we'll have a repository of these that are hosted for all of you publicly as well when we get into the templates. So going back to the slides on the image URL here, some quick tips and thoughts here. We'd recommend keeping your photo style consistent. So if you're going to use the templates that we are going to show you in a bit, or if you're pointing users to certain locations, a lot of times we see folks use Company Communicator as sort of the introduction to leverage the other resources, locations, etc., that exist for your communication strategy. Keeping the photos consistent is probably sort of self-explanatory, but important. Obviously, making sure the image is relevant to the content that I mentioned earlier. You can do static GIFs or GIFs, however you like to pronounce. Tim calls me out on this one all the time. You cannot do dynamic GIFs, just to know. And then from a size requirement perspective, and the images on the little more of a technical side here, I've shared links. You all have access to this as we speak. These slides are already in the playbook. But how to find an image URL, if you're not comfortable with that, I've made that easy for you there. Images at most by default must be 1024 by 1024 and less than a megabyte if you follow those formats. And then finally, if you want to take an image that already exists and compress it, Tim was kind enough to share a couple of these with us early on in the program. So this shows you how to resize and compress the image so you can get it to fit inside of the adaptive card right here. So again, I'm going to pause, make sure we have an opportunity as we go through each one of these steps to answer questions. Anything from the team? All good?
Oh, good.
All right, so I'm going to just not do a summary here. But I just want to show everybody, as I'm typing in my summary, if you scroll down, because this is a big image, you can see everything pop up as you're typing. So you get a nice little preview here. I'm going to show you how to do a secondary preview for the demo. So there's not a whole ton to cover here on the summary, but in terms of actually on the demo side of things, but I think it's really important to call a couple of things out as we go into the message itself. Again, reiterating that this is not intended to replace your existing communications resources. It's an additional awareness tool and something we talked about quite a bit yesterday. So it can supplement your existing strategies. As an example, again, forgive me because I talk about Ernst & Young, but I know their situation intimately. What Ernst & Young did when they first launched Company Communicator is they welcomed and introduced users to the application with the application. So they told everybody a little bit what it was about in the summary, and then the button that they used, which we'll get to in a moment, pointed users to their pinned SharePoint site over on the left-hand navigation bar in Teams, which had resources to help them learn how to use Teams. So they drove adoption efforts here. So there's some really cool, clever ways that we've seen organizations use this. And when we get into the URLs, I'll show you how to do that and where you can pull this from. But again, on the summary, just a couple quick tips. Be descriptive yet concise. I'd recommend a few sentences at most here. Don't over communicate, because I would assume most of you are going to use this. And to be fair, there's multiple ways you could do this, and we'll talk through it in more detail next week. This could just be an announcement where you don't want to point users anywhere, and that's completely fine. We've seen a lot of organizations do that, particularly during COVID. But if you want to point users to another location with the button, which we'll show you in a moment, I think that's your opportunity here to be crisp, clear, and concise. So what are you sharing? Why is it important to the people that are reading? Prioritize the generals over the specifics. Can I ask the broadcast hub team to work on the mutes, please? And then leverage our pre-populated card content. So we've pre-populated some of this content for all of you that we'll show you here in a moment to make this easier to get started. All right. Hey guys, can I ask the team to get on the mute, please?
Yep.
Thank you.
Done it, Jace.
Appreciate it. Okay, cool. So anything that we want to cover here on the summary, anything the team wants to throw out there, questions that have come up yet?
Yeah, one, Jace, is we had some questions about the number of character limit, and I kind of tongue-in-cheek, just kidding around there, Joe. But if you're asking how many characters it will hold, you're thinking of too many characters. And so, again, as Jace had said, you really want this to be short, because if not, it's going to look like an email. And the whole purpose of the company communicator messages and the effectiveness that we've found through our customers is keeping it short, sweet, and driving them to that next screen versus trying to communicate your message here.
Yeah, great ad. And we have the specifics as we actually had Alexi and the team tested this, and it's in the FAQ. I can't remember the exact amount. And I'm not even sure we came up with a message, because if you all can see, I just did copy paste and there's a ton of text here. So hopefully your card never looks this large. But I'm with you, Michael. I mean, in my mind, this is pointing users. But again, recognizing too that some might use this more as an announcement versus a pointing others to a certain location. But again, I think still crisp, concise is incredibly important.
And
anyone else?
One other with this, Jace. Just want to highlight that we're actually going to give you pre-built information to pre-populate this. Mm-hmm. So you'll have the URL, it'll all be set up for the image. You'll have a title you can cut and paste, complete with emojis that you can remove or add as you wish. And it has sort of a summary that looks good with the size of the image, right? So the idea here is that if you use the pre-built templates that we've put together, it should take about, it should take, 30 seconds to build this. Sure. Really, the only thing you need to do is set up the SharePoint URL.
And just to add to what Timothy said, which 100% agree with everything he said, next week on the office hours, we are going to be talking about the templates that we have, and then we're also going to be talking about how you go through the decision process around a communication campaign that might be related to other parts of your business, like executive message, driving cultural change, things along this line that might not necessarily have been covered in other webcasts. A lot of the work that EY did, Ernst & Young did, was around driving adoption of teams. And so you can definitely use this for other initiatives as well.
All great points. Thank you, gents. Okay, so last three here. So author is the next one. And look, you can make this whatever you want. You don't even have to fill in all of these fields, just to call that out. So you can leave some of these blank if you want to. But this is a great opportunity for a bunch of different reasons. You can put taglines here, or you can specify where this information is coming from. So we've had a lot of questions where some of you had said we have other organizational groups or other organizations that fall under the realm of our broader group, so subsidiaries, if you will, and forgive me if that's not the nomenclature that you use. But how do you clarify which information is coming from which organization, and how do you target the right people at the right time? And frankly, this is a really quick and easy way to do that. And you'll see how this makes sense when we go into who you can send messages to in a bit. But as an example, if you wanted to just send a message to your sales community and you wanted to clarify that that was coming from sales leadership, you could type that in right here. And you can use the security groups or the distribution groups that we'll show you in a moment to send that only to your sales organization. So tons of great options here. And back to the point Michael just made, is this doesn't need to just be about teams. And we'll cover that more as we go through the following weeks. Couple tips though, going into the actual author message that I just kind of touched on, but a few more things worth adding. Again, opportunity to let your people know where the message is coming from. We see this as an opportunity to forge relationships between departments. So a lot of you here have brought together your communications team as well as your IT team who look after Microsoft Teams. We've seen this, again, back to Ernst & Young, this forged a beautiful relationship between both those departments that they didn't necessarily have before, where they worked together to make sure that not only were they driving adoption of their technology, but they were doing so in a way that was effectively communicated to others. So it doesn't need to just be IT and corporate comms, but tons of great opportunity here to forge these relationships across your organizational groups. And then again, a reminder, you could also use a tagline here. So if you've got the same author sending this out all the time, or if you want to put something we talked about yesterday, or you'll see with our templates, if you want to have themes to some of the messages that you're sending, you could clarify the theme here as well. So sky's the limit on how you'd use this author button, but we thought we'd give you a few options as we went through it. Anything from the team there on this one?
More detail on this next week, but depending on the size of your organization, there are really 4 distinct teams that we see working with Company Communicator. You certainly have IT, actually, so there's 5. You have IT because they're enabling this. And then you have your communications group, your content creators group, your training group, and then experts who are going to really help fill in the gap because they have deep expertise in teams and capabilities or other types of messages you might send out. If you are a smaller organization, then you are probably used to wearing multiple hats. And so all of those might be in one, and then you work with your IT. So it just kind of depends, but this can be a cross-organizational platform that is used, or it can be something that just a very small group use.
Yeah, well said.
Jason, I had the question from a customer. You can install the author app in an HR team and a corp comms team, right? And then distinguish your posts by the author. Is that fair?
So are we saying 2 different applications and 2 different teams? Was that the, did I understand that?
The same Company Communicator author app installed into 2 different teams, meaning the source of the message might come from HR one week and from corp comm another week. The only way to distinguish that would be on the author, unless you completely reinstall the app with a different icon and all that, right?
I actually don't know if you can put the same author app in 2 different teams. Anybody, can we clarify that point first? Does anybody on the call know? I've never used that, because I guess my honest thought is bringing the authors together is kind of the purpose here, and then you can distinguish who's sending it by updating the actual author button. But maybe I'm missing something here. Does anyone else have an ad? I'll double check that one.
Yeah, maybe I can check. Can add something about this.
Sure.
Byron is totally right. You can add the app to multiple different teams. The only thing is that all different people author email must be filled into the Azure app. to the authorized author,
Permissions, yeah.
and it will work. Yeah.
Cool.
But in terms of branding, all message will be sent using let's say company communicator with the same branding. If you want a different branding, except with the author field, you have to reinstall the app.
Okay.
Yeah,
Great
so
to know.
if you
Thanks,
want
Chris.
different branding, you need two apps. If you want the same branding, but two distinct communities of authors, then you could distinguish in this field here, the author field.
Something I thought was a pretty clever workaround is one customer talked to me about just changing the color of the logo when they sent out different messages for different types of topics as well, or from different authors, which was a quick fix and change, which was pretty cool. Again, so sky's the limit. And as you all start planning your strategies, the goal today was to kind of give you the foundational considerations and thoughts. We're here to help you. I mean, that's really the purpose of this program. So throw these questions out as you're going through and planning your own strategy. I think it'd be really helpful to hear from other organizations and how they're thinking about this. So we can share what we know, but it'd also be great to hear your thoughts. And again, we'll cover this in even more details in the following weeks from all of you. Thanks for calling that out, Byron. Okay, so button title, button URL, the last two. I'm going to do these together. So button title, you actually won't see the title show up until you've thrown in the URL. Now URLs have to be secure. So I'm just going to throw in what I believe to be a fake website here. Say pushthebutton.org. And now since I have a URL in, you're going to see the title pop up as I start typing. So let's say we want people to know that they should push this button to find more information. Obviously, I've got to add my emoji there. And then there's the button, push me. So you can say whatever you want here. Okay, I'll go through some of the recommendations in a moment, but you won't see the button actually show up again until you've typed in the URL into the message here. So to cover these and some thoughts on the last two topics here, for the button title itself, we'd recommend, again, keeping it quick and catchy. Make it obvious what you want users to do. If you want them to click on the button, say something inside of the button that makes it obvious that you, for example, learn more, which is pretty generic button topic, but it's pretty obvious when folks are looking at it. I like push me with a little finger because it pretty much clarifies exactly what you want people to do. Call to actions, create clarity. Again, emojis is pick or choose if that makes sense for you and your organization, but I love those little touches and I think they make a big difference. And then for the button URL itself, this can be wherever you want to point users to, internal, external. We see a lot of organizations actually point to certain locations in Teams. So you all have seen me share direct links to tabs as an example. So when you get the AKA link that I share out to our playbook or to our FAQ, that's actually pointing you to tabs in our channels. And so you can right click a lot of things in Teams or hit the more options in Teams and grab the link to those areas and send users directly to it. So again, going back to Ernst & Young, what they did is over here on the left-hand rail, they had that SharePoint site pinned in Teams and they used a deep link. And if anybody wants to know how to use a deep link, happy to share out that information. But their button in Teams, the first day that they notified users right here, had a deep link that sent users to the SharePoint application directly. And it was a pretty cool way to actually use the application. So they welcome users to Company Communicator and they pointed them towards more resources to learn how to use Teams, which is pretty cool. Just to call out again, this URL must be secure, HTTPS. And back to one of the questions from the very beginning of the call before we started is how do you track click rates? So we are trying desperately to get some custom code available to everybody where you can do this by default. And I'm going to show you what the reporting looks like here in a moment. But a quick way to do this is you can leverage tracking URLs. So that AKA link that I was using earlier for the image is actually a tracking URL that we use inside of Microsoft. Our FAQ has a couple of resources where you can get these online if you don't have that available in your organization. And they're very cheap and there's also a lot of free options. And so those links will actually allow you to track who's clicking that button, which will make it easier for you to show the click rate on the messages themselves. And then if you want to be able to track how many people are viewing, we do get access to that data inside of Microsoft. Not us, but our engineering team, of course, has access to this information. So let us know. If you give us the approval, we can help you with that one, okay? And it's a touchy subject, I know, for certain organizations, but I want to call it out and I want to be honest and transparent with you all throughout this whole program. So we can help you with that. And Tim and team are going to show you in week 5. We've been working on a template together to help show the impact of what you've done as an organization that we want to share with all of you. So as you go through and as you start sending these messages, whether it's during the program or after, we want to help you show the impact of your amazing work and your efforts. Cool. So let me pause here. Any last thoughts on the authoring experience? I'm going to go now to sending the message. If not, how are we doing on questions too? Are we all good? Cool. All right. So next thing I'm going to do here is you're going to have to hit next. Okay. So the first time you come in here and send a message, you have to determine how you want to send your message and who you want to send it to. And you have 4 different options here. Now, the first option is sending to the general channel of specific teams. As a reminder, you have to download the application to those teams, and only teams that you have downloaded the application to will show up right here. So in this instance, we've downloaded it to 3 teams in this tenant, marketing, retail, sales. I can pick and choose any combination of these, or I can choose all of them if I want. And this would send a message to the general channel of these teams. Now, look, there's no right or wrong way to do this. I know few organizations who send the messages to the general channel. Most send it to the one-on-one chat because that's such a valuable piece of real estate. And if I'm being honest, your formatting ability in a Teams general channel post, so when you do an announcement, frankly, gives you a lot more options than you get in the adaptive card minus the button. And you can cross-post across teams as well, just by default now in the Teams experience. So again, there's not a right or wrong way, but I just want to kind of call out some of these best practices that we've seen. We've also had organizations, of course, use the general channel. So whatever makes the most sense for your organization. But again, we just find the chat tab to be such a powerful piece of real estate that most people pay attention to and will go read. And so you can capture that attention, assuming that you've got a great piece of content for folks to look at. Does someone want to add something? Cool. So next option, similar to that, is you can send in chat to members of those same teams that you've downloaded the application to. So same teams will show up here. I can pick and choose any number of teams that I want, one or all of them, and it'll send a one-on-one chat message directly to users of those teams. Third option is you send a message to chat to everyone in your organization. Now recognize people who do not have Company Communicator downloaded, who are not in a team where the application has been downloaded, will not receive the message. Okay, so I want to call that one out. And again, this is all covered in the FAQ. I'm happy to point people to the specifics on how to easily make this how to easily download it for users in your organization, whether it's subgroups, whether it's everybody. We've got Teams app setup policies. We have APIs that can do this in an automated fashion, and there's a bunch of different options to make this easy. And then finally, you can send to message to users of Microsoft 365 groups, distribution groups, or security groups. And all you need to do is actually get the email address the first time that you want to send this to a security group or one of these following groups, and it'll stick to the cache. So as an example, we have one here for architecture where this has saved the distribution group in the cache here. So you can send this out to these different groups. So again, this becomes a very powerful option if you want to start sending catered messages to certain parts of your organization from a particular group. So really great options here.
Jace,
let me pause there. Yep.
Yeah, overstating the obvious, but
please
send to in all 4 of these options has to have not the author app, but the regular app, right? Installed to whoever those intended recipients are.
That's a great clarification point. Yes, 100%. So only authors can send, only author can do what we're seeing right here, right? So only authors have the ability to send a message. Users have to have the user application downloaded for them. And again, we covered those options last week in the deployment office hours, and I'm happy to send that over because we've got quite a few of it covered in the FAQ, but great call out.
Quick question here.
Sure.
Might not related to this, but selecting this option to send it to the distribution groups, I think right now there is a limitation that we cannot assign the app policy directly to the distribution group. Instead, we need to assign it to the user one by one, picking up from the groups, like directly assigning it the app policy for Company Communicator to a distribution group, which contains all the users from a specific region or from a department for testing and all. But it's not possible, I think, or is it, or we need to do it one by one for every user?
It's a good question. So if I can just summarize, can the app set up policies, which is one of the options to distribute the app more broadly rather than manually? Can it go to distribution groups?
Yeah. So for example, right now I want to test it for the users based in Europe only, not globally, and there are 5,000 users. So I put them into a distribution group like you have put it in an architecture. And then I want to assign this company communicator app policy to that group.
It makes sense,
Yeah.
I don't know, to answer the question honestly. My brain is overflowing right now with information on this, but let's absolutely find out that answer. And if I can ask the V team to write that one down for the FAQs, let's find out, because I believe we cover it in the FAQ, but I'm not 100% sure. And I know for certain we'll be able to get you an answer as soon as possible. What I'll do as well is I'll post that out to the group just so we do cover that answer so everybody can see.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Thanks, you. Great question. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to send a chat out to everyone. So you have to choose before you save this draft how you're going to send your message out to everybody. And then you save it as a draft. So you can't send yet. We had a great question about this, I believe from one of the folks in Greece recently. So save this draft. You've now chosen the message. You've now created the message. You've chosen how you want to send it. And you'll note that it actually shows up here in the draft messages now. I have 2 that are the same. So what you're going to want to do next is you've got a few different options, but you can go up to go to the more options in the actual message that you want to send. And you could just directly send it right now if you wanted. I would recommend first previewing this in the channel. Okay. So I'll show you what that looks like in a second. I think the other 3 options are pretty self-explanatory. Edit, duplicate, delete. Duplicate will just create a second option for you. And then you can go back in and always edit this before you send. But when you hit preview in channel, what happens is in this same channel where you have the author application, you'll see a post that comes up in the general channel. So right there, you can see this just happened right now. This is a preview of what the card will look like for users. And so I sent one of these yesterday so you can see the full button, same thing. And so you just get a nice little view of what this is going to look like and how the users will see it. And again, depending on how you want to send it, in this case, we're going to see it in a moment. It's going to go into chat for users. But just a great way to preview what your message looks like. And if you want to edit any of the content, etc., you can go back in and do so before you send. Now, let's say in this case, we're comfortable with that message and we decide, all right, we're going to send this out to everybody. Reminder that I chose to send to everybody in chat. So I'm going to go ahead and hit send. It's going to give me one more final view. It notes what I chose for my option and where we're going to be sending the message. And then I hit send. And it'll take a moment here, but what will happen is a couple things. First of all, I will see the message now in the sent messages. You can see it's queued and it's getting sent as we speak. Just to note, the default experience for the time it takes to send messages, it's roughly about 100,000 users per hour. So Ernst & Young, who sends this out to about 320,000 users on average, takes between 3.5 hours, sometimes a little bit longer based on their connectivity. But you see, I just got a message. The message has been sent out. Now, here's the cool thing. You can pin the user application, back to Byron's question earlier, for users, which we have done in this tenant over on the left-hand rail. So I get a notification badge in chat. I get a notification badge in the actual Company Communicator application itself. And it just makes it easy to go back and reference it if you want to find something versus in your chat tab, as I'm sure we're all aware, probably just in the 42 minutes we've been on this call, our chat tab is out of control and we've got to go catch up. So user now has received the message. As you can see, it's bold. I've got a card and I can see the message that we just saw. Now, great question yesterday. Somebody asked, can a user respond to this message? As you can see, I cannot respond to this message because version 4.1, the most recent version of Company Communicator, does not allow users to respond to the message. Now, of course, you can work around that, or you can do what we've done internally, where we've got a combo of Company Communicator and an FAQ bot, so you can interact with it as well. But the only thing that I can do is react to the message if I want to, which would be stored in Azure Storage, as we shared last week and in the deployment walkthrough. Okay, so again, I would have also been able to click right here and see this. And that notification badge is so powerful. It's sitting on the left-hand rail. If you're an inbox 0 person where you want to make sure you see all your questions or your notifications like I do, and I'm sure quite a few of you out there are, it's a great way to draw users' attention. But then again, hopefully the context and the guidance that we gave earlier makes it helpful for you to make sure the message is valuable for users. Now, last thing I want to show you here is the reporting of this. So we sent a message, we go back into the author application, and I can see the message that we just sent a few moments ago. At a high level here, it'll show me how many people have received, how many people where we had a failure. So 12 people received this message, we had a failure with 8, and we did this on purpose so we could show you what this looks like. Now, I can click on this, I can see the high level details again, So again, 12 success, 8 failure. It gives me some information here. Personally, what I would do at this point is export the detailed results. So this puts it into queue. What's going to happen is the company communicator author application is going to notify me via chat when this is available for download. So this message I just got right now, and I can click allow. And what will happen is it'll give me the file to download the data and information. So let's go ahead and pull this up just so you can see what it looks like. And you'll get 2 options here. One of them, I'm not sure why we report, but it actually just gives you information on the actual message delivery itself. The other one gives you metadata that I'm pulling up in a separate screen, and I'll show you here in a moment. Now, this data is going to give me specific delivery information by user. So this is the file that I just downloaded right here. Let me expand these out. So I can see the user ID, the UPN, the name, the delivery status, whether it failed or succeeded. Let me sort these. And then I can see for the failed reasons why the actual delivery failed, which is great, right? So you can see the information here. So the tenant admin disabled the bot for these users. This is another important one that happens all the time, is the app was not installed for the users. So you can avoid these failures early on. We've covered this in the FAQ as well. These are some of the 2 most common reasons you're seeing right here that the app actually fails to send to the users. So basic reporting right there. Again, what we're going to show you now is how to actually take this to the next level and leverage the one pages that we've put together, so you can send users to directly your SharePoint site or your intranet site where you've got this information available and you can track usage that way. Let me pause though, because that was a bunch. Make sure that we've got this all covered. Any questions or additions from the team?
Yeah, I think we need to get a little clarification around policy assignment. We're kind of going back and forth in chat about group policy assignment for Teams app setup policy, which I believe is supported today, but it's the permission policies that don't support group assignment, only batch.
For sure, we'll do that, definitely.
Okay.
I don't have it at the moment, but we'll definitely follow up on that one. Thanks for calling it out. And then just recapping here. So again, friendly reminders, just to recap what we just did. Messages can be sent to everyone in the organization via one-on-one chat, everyone in selected teams, and every member of an Office 365 security group. You can also do that leveraging PowerShell. So that actually might be the way to work around for the security groups. But again, I'm no expert here, so we'll follow up on this one. And then users can only receive the message if the company communicator application has been installed for them directly or for that team first. And then please read the FAQ section. This is perfect. I forgot we put this on here, but this is exactly what we were just talking about for policy. So we'll get that information if it's not already in there, but the FAQ's got quite a bit. So I'd imagine that we covered it. All right. So yes, somebody have something.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Sometimes we are assigning this company communicator policy through a custom policy in Teams. So in that case, there are chances that in the first place, the app is not getting installed for the users until like you have assigned the policy to the users, but in their Teams client, they're not receiving the messages and you get this similar error like app not installed and all. And then the solution they do is to restart their Teams client or clear cache or relogging to the Teams. But sometimes it's kind of for too many people. So the question is, what is the probability, like, when you are using these kind of custom policies to assign this app to the users? So in the first place, the success rate will be like almost 90 to 100%, and people need not restart their Teams and other client.
I'm going to be honest. I missed the question. Did anybody else get that one?
The question is, when you assign this app policy through using custom policy in Teams, though the app is showing that it has been assigned to the user via policy, but it does not reflect in the user's Teams client until they are restarting their Teams or relogging to the Teams by clearing cache and all.
Sure.
So what is the probability going in future, like if you are doing assigning the app, so all the users you are assigning it to do not need to restart their Teams 2 or 3 times or something like that? I mean, what is the success rate?
So your concern is you're You're assigning the policy to users and sending a message to them on the same day. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like after sometimes it takes more than 24 hours also, and for some of the users the message is failing.
So if you
And
waited more than 24 hours, would the issue be
Yeah.
there? Because I would imagine they'd have to close down overnight and restart it.
Yeah, then we ask them to relogging to the Teams or restart the Teams, and they do, and then it is successful. But
Got it.
sometimes it's for too many people, so it's kind of frustrating as well.
If we can, just because we're still recording, I might take this one direct with you, and if we could post it in the Teams team. It's a great question. I just honestly haven't run into the use case because most organizations do a bunch of testing and prep before they send their first message. They don't run into this challenge, but it's a great one to call out. Let's make sure that we.
Yeah, we are also
sorted
in this
see if we work
POC,
around.
and we sent it to like 30 users, but like around 8 to 10 of them
okay,
did not
got it.
receive it.
Okay.
So I think,
Yeah, I'll post it.
Jace,
Yeah.
what it'd be is that best practice is to not deploy and send you a message on the same day. Like have
Yeah,
a
for sure.
24-hour gap between the two, and we can easily bake that into the best practices for when we're looking to send that first message. Thanks, Munesh. That's a really good heads up.
Thank you so much. So real quick, wanted to cover these. We're introducing you now to the templates that we've been working on for the past, couple months here, thanks to the V team here. Now, disclaimer, we're going to give you these today. You actually already have them. I posted them in the chat, but I'll share them again. We're currently professionally having these polished up, so they will be done no later than Friday. I was hoping to have them before you now, but we didn't get them done yet. We want to have these ready to go. But I want to show you how to navigate this, and we're going to go into these in more detail next week. But what you're looking at right here, sorry, I can't get rid of this thing. This is the Teams one-pagers that this is the template one-pagers we're looking at. So I provided guidance on slide 2 with the help of the team on how to use this deck. But basically, what we've got in this deck are templates that are not pre-populated, but they're ready to go so you can leverage them as one-pagers. And what we see and what Ernst & Young did is they use the button in the adaptive card to point users to these specific one-pagers for more information. And that one-pager was sitting in a SharePoint site where they could track the amount of people that were viewing it. So it was their way of tracking click rates as well. So clever way of doing this, but also a great way to get people more information to learn how to use some of this information. So I'll get to the Teams messages in a second. That'll make more sense. You'll see how we've repopulated. But in this one, we say, look, check out the examples and tips section, which I'll go through. Decide what type of template you want. We have long form and short form. Pick the template exactly that you want and personalize it by adding some content. And we're going to give you these as slides. You can use these however you like. And then create your company communicator message. Again, we pre-populated a lot of this for you. So when I say message, I'm talking about the demo that we just walked through to send to users. And then use your button URL to send users to wherever you've loaded your one-pager. Again, we often recommend the intranet site because it's easy to track the number of views, and then push the button and send your message. So let's go through this deck real quick. First thing you'll see here are examples and tips. So a few slides where we go through and we call out specific tips on how to leverage your content for these templates specifically. So we've got a bunch of different things that we call out here in these purple boxes, as well as some general guidance here that we covered today throughout the session. So that's the first section. Second section gives you the long form one-pager templates. So these are not pre-filled. As you can see, we just have the lorem ipsum. So you can customize these. You can change the colors. These will be given to you as slides. You can do whatever you want with them. The long forms are just like they sound. They've got a lot more text and more white space, if you will, on the slide in case you have a longer message that you want to get out on these. And we've got a bunch of different options as you scroll down here. We also have short form templates. So opposite to the long form, these have little less text on the slides. And again, just to give you a few different options, we had the vendor help us out to create a few of these, just so you can pick and choose whatever works. And again, you'll get these as slides. You can customize them as you see fit. So that was the templates. What we've done is we've taken it one step further, and we actually got together and filled out pre-populated templates. There's 19 of them right now. You're going to have 30 by the time we're done with this program. Same thing here. I show you how to use this, but let's get into the Teams templates. We are giving you 3 different categories of team templates here. And let me zoom in. So we've got better meetings. We've got better experience. better meetings, better experience, and better teams. Okay, so if you're actually using this deck, these are hyperlinks. You can control click and it'll send you to that section in the deck. But these are 3 different types of campaigns for whatever Teams experience that you want to deliver, should you want to send Teams related content via Company Communicator. And let me show you one example. So let's go into better meetings. Let's say that you want to help your organization have better meeting experiences with Teams, whether that's reducing the overload of communication, whether that's how to run a meeting better. We've got a bunch of different options in here. So each of these are organized by section. As you can see, this deck is organized by section. The first slide that you'll see in each section is what Tim referenced earlier. This is the pre-populated Company Communicator card content. So again, this is getting polished up as we speak, and it'll have a slightly new format. But each one of these rows is related to the specific slide in one pager. So this is a link right here to the slide itself. So I'll show you it in a second. But this first slide that you'll see is about polls. And you could copy and paste this content into the adaptive card that we just showed you. So you've got 19 of these available to you that we'll give you right now. And again, recognizing that we'll have these updated by the end of the week. And so you can pre-fill your adaptive card, and then what you can do is you can take this slide. So this is the poll slide that I just referenced, and this walks you through how to run a poll in a Teams meeting. So we've got pre-filled content. Again, you can customize it how you like. And then what you can do is you can save this again in a location of your choice, and the button URL in the adaptive card, which as you can see here, we've left blank. You can point users to this one pager if they want to leverage it for more content. And if you scroll through, we have 19 of these, usually I think between 5 and 7 for each category. We've got better experience here, and we've got better teams, right? So I won't go through all of these. We're going to cover that in more detail next week, but I wanted to give you an overview of the templates that you're going to have access to so you can go ahead and get started in planning. And again, we've organized these by category up here so you can have access. All right, so that was a lot. I want to go fast to make sure we got this out. Let me pause. How are we doing, Microsoft team? Questions? Anybody have anything they want to ask or bring up?
Yeah, real quick. Sorry, Emma, go ahead.
I was just going to say lots of questions going through. I think we've answered most. Jen, I just wanted to call out something interesting that you called out. What was the advantage of kind of packaging this up as a document rather than having this, in a SharePoint page? This is absolutely something that we discussed as a team. Tim, I thought you might have some commentary on that one. Go ahead.
Yep, Jen, I'm 100% on board with where you're at. I was pushing these guys. I'm like, let's do a modern SharePoint experience because I totally agree with that. The reality is not everybody's there yet. And so the question was, do we build something that like 60% of people can use, or do we build something that 100% of people can use? Now, the good news is I played around with adapting these to templates because we'll give you the PowerPoint. And it'll have all of the content in there. So you can do some quick cut and paste yourself, and about 20 minutes to knock up a modern SharePoint site with all of the stuff on there. And then that does give you a whole bunch of additional customization. Plus it feeds into, like, for example, if you have an advanced analytics solution sitting on top of that, you'll be able to get a whole lot more rich. Oh, yeah, there you go. So this was one where I just kind of cut and pasted everything out of the PowerPoint and dumped it into a modern SharePoint site. So you can see it's relatively easy. One of the really nice benefits of this is that when you click on the images, they'll blow up to full size. Whereas with the PDF, you're kind of scrolling in you have to zoom to get that kind of resolution. Yeah, but I love the question. If you do end up setting them up as modern SharePoint sites, please let me know. Like, I don't know, I'll find some swag to send you or something as my test case for, like.
Tim is so happy you asked this question. For sure.
We had to hold Tim down to the floor to get him to stop talking about this.
That's so good.
Duct tape was involved.
So Jen, I think you in the chat there you've called it out. It's about inclusivity, and of course we have a very large range of customers on the call. So I guess maybe Tim, maybe we could put something together for some of those customers that may be using SharePoint today, and post that in a channel for people to review if they do want to go down that route instead.
Yeah, so just to call out too on that point is if this is our team, right? So the broadcast hub, if you go to the general channel and you hit files and you open this in SharePoint, that's exactly what I just did. And if you go to pages, we've got some that are pre-populated there already. But yeah, I think it'd be good to provide some guidance on here if we don't have that available. But no right or wrong way. Again, I think the goal is that you've got the content and you're pointing users to the place that makes the most sense for your organization. I selfishly also love this because the analytics are much better on here, right? You've got the default analytics where you can track how many people are coming, which gives you kind of a default click rate on your message as well. Great question.
Yeah, and if you use another product like Adobe Analytics or Core Metrics or any of the other web trends, then you can really instrument this much more granularly. Again, we tried to make sure that this was highly accessible, so we kind of defaulted to using the out-of-the-box SharePoint analytics, which are not as information rich, but they'll get you there.
Awesome. Anything else we want to cover? We're happy to stick around for a few minutes. Our team always meets after, so we can roll over if anybody needs to. I'm going to do this as well as we're popping into that question. Emma, looks like you have something really quick. You're all about to get a poll in front of you on the screen or in the chat. We really want to make an effort over the coming weeks to hear from more of you and maybe even have some of you co-present. So if you're willing, even if you haven't deployed the application, but you know what your strategy is going to look like, or you put a lot of thought into it, we'd love to hear from you. I'd imagine the community would love to hear from you. So if you're willing, we just threw a poll out there, let us know, and we'll reach out to you directly. No worries if not. But again, we want to give everybody the option because we've heard from some of you directly, and there's some really incredible and creative ways people are thinking about using this, and I think it'll help your peers quite a bit. Sorry, Emma, I think you had something.
No, just another kind of comment on one of the questions. Evo is one of our CSMs here in the UK. Just wanted to kind of give a bit of a shout out that Evo's